Championship Drag Racing. Hi, everybody. This is John Lundberg speaking from the starting line of Bristol International Dragway, Bristol, Tennessee, known as Thunder Valley. It's been a record-setting qualifying session here at Thunder Valley for the 24th annual WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser. In Top Fuel Eliminator, a brand new track record by Joe Amato at 5:24.8, 278.03. The field has been strengthened by returning champions. Mr. 499 Eddie Hill is in the program. Dick LaHaye, the Winston World Champion, is here. And for the first time in 12 years, Shirley Muldowney returns to Bristol. In Funny Car Eliminator, Kenny Bernstein has reemerged as the top qualifier in the field, and Warren Johnson has put the AC Delco Oldsmobile at the top of Pro Stock qualifying. Another considerable factor in the success of the race this weekend is the incredible track preparation evinced by the repaving of the drag strip just a short time ago. And here to cover that is the second member of our 1988 ESPN announcing team. Here's Bret Kepner.
Well, John, the brand new asphalt surface that was laid down here at Bristol International Dragway a few weeks before the running of the Spring Nationals, which was originally thought to have made things pretty complicated. But indeed, the brand new asphalt surface actually came in so quickly, or gained traction so quickly, that it had an awful lot to do with the record-setting performances here this weekend. Along with the brand new asphalt surface confronting the racers is one of the first ever 12-car eliminator fields proposed by IHRA to give the fans a little bit more racing action, and that will automatically seed the top 4 qualifiers into the second round of action. The third member of our announcing staff here at the Spring Nationals is Pat Patterson. Let's join Pat in the pits.
Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. We're in the pits with the man who's qualified #1 today for the funny car position, Kenny Bernstein. Kenny, one of the factors that we're going to have to deal with today at Bristol is the air conditions and the fact that the atmospheric changes can pose some problems for you guys.
Well, that's true. We're real high altitude here in the mountains of Tennessee. Plus, it's hot today, and the atmospheric conditions are a lot tougher to make horsepower. So you have to make adjustments in the engine to make more horsepower. But that compounds another problem, because the more power you make, the racetrack's a little slick at the 500 and 600 foot mark off the starting line. It's hard for us to get enough downforce to make the car go quick and fast. So you're compounding more horsepower and a tougher racetrack.
Well, you're qualified #1 today. You think you can do well?
Well, I hope so. I think that the Budweiser Quaker State Buick has as good a chance as anybody. Dale Armstrong and the crew have done a good job to get us in #1. Let's hope so.
This IHRA Championship Drag Race is being brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Tire. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. By Budweiser. Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By Motorcraft, quality parts for quality cars. And by Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. We'll be back with Top Fuel Eliminator Drag Racing from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser following these messages. We're back at Thunder Valley for the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals. And Bret, as we open Top Fuel quarterfinal rounds here, we find Joe Amato against Dan Pastorini. In the first round, Pastorini beat Shirley Muldowney. And here is Pat with Shirley.
Give me a perspective of what kind of year it's been for you so far.
Not a real good one. We've tried a lot of new equipment, and unfortunately a lot of it hasn't worked for us, and we're just, slowly a series of eliminations. The fuel system, that's the critical thing for everyone out here, and some people tend to just land on a combination, or I should say stumble on a combination, and it works well for them. We haven't had that thought yet. No, we haven't stumbled on anything.
Staged and ready. Pastorini moved in and then put a solid 1/10 of a second hole shot off the starting line on the Performance Automotive Wholesale Dragster. On the top end, Pastorini drove away at 5.55 seconds to take the win.
And after winning that race, Pastorini gets to face this guy, the #1 qualifier, Joe Amato. Got a bye in the first round as a phenomenon of the 12-car qualifying program. Pastorini's first run, 5:55. Now he gets to sprint down the quarter mile against the #1 qualifier. They're out of the gate. Good race, and it's Amato in the lead. Amato by more than a car length sprints the way to the win at 5:37. Speed 270, Pastorini 5:63 at 2:39.
The next battle coming up on the starting line will feature probably the most respected IHRA Top Fuel dragster in the last season and a half. We're talking, of course, about Gene Snow from Fort Worth, Texas in the near lane, the snowman and reigning IHRA world champion, John.
Interesting contest here, Bret. The Winston champion against the IHRA world champion. In the first round, Dick LaHaye took advantage of his number 3 qualifying spot for a bye run. Snow ran 5:57, and it could be at this rate that being used to the course in the near lane is going to be a significant advantage for the snowman of Fort Worth.
Both these drivers are killers on the starting line. Watch the Christmas tree countdown to see who leaves first, because it's going to play a major outcome in this battle.
They're into stage. Tension mounts on the crowd here at Thunder Valley. They're out 6,000ths of a second apart, and it looks like LaHaye's in the lead. Snow right with him. LaHaye wins. Time for the victor, 5:38 at 2:67. Snow, the runner-up, 5:44 at 2:57.
A tremendous battle. LaHaye's 6,000ths of a second hole shot turns into 600ths at the finish line. Here's Dennis Forssell's Cable Value Network top fueler, and Pat Patterson had a chance to talk with one of the greatest rookies of the year.
One of the men who's looking for a victory here at Bristol is Dennis Forssell. And Dennis, you've had a good year to this point. What can make you successful here at Bristol?
Well, I think the track is a little tricky here, and I think that Larry's got a good handle on it. With his experience, I think that it's going to take that type of thing to pull out a win here.
We've talked to everybody about the fact that the air can change here because of the being in the mountains here in Bristol. Has that been a problem for you, or do you anticipate it as being a problem?
Well, you definitely have to change your tune-up, but it's the same air. Everybody has to run the same air, so the deal is an equalizer.
The rookie against this veteran, John Kerry. Number 10 qualifier in the program. Kerry in the last round ran 5:64.
Well, John, it's important to note that John Kerry in the first round, running that 5.64 second, had this problem, a severe engine fire after several connecting rods broke through the engine block. As you can see, the fire burned well into the shutdown area, but they repaired the damage and have made it back for this round. On the line now against Dennis Forssell.
Veteran John Kerry, with a busy afternoon going for him, now faces Dennis Forssell as Larry Frazier has the computer turned on and the former alcohol racer is ready to drag race. They leave, and it's Kerry out in the lead, starts to waste the motor. Forssell drives around him. Dennis Forssell wins. Time for Forssell, the victor, 5:46 at 2:61. Kerry, runner-up, 5:64 at 2:40.
A tough break for John Kerry, but Dennis Forssell will take it. Backing up onto the starting line right now, the machine that right now is literally on top of the drag racing world. The Super Shop's Pennzoil missile from Wichita Falls, Texas, of the first man to break the 4-second barrier, Eddie Hill. But he'll be up against one of the most cagey veterans in the sport, John.
Eddie Hill, number 2 qualifier by 1,000th of a second, Bret, at 5:24.9. And Coletta, as he's done for 30 years, just gets ready for another lap. Coletta will step up and hurt you if you give him any kind of a chance at all, and Eddie Hill knows that. Eddie Hill's 295-inch long Super Shop Pennzoil top fueler at the top of your screen. Connie Coletta, the KFS Flying Service fueler at the bottom, and we're ready to drag race at Thunder Valley. Hill, bypassing a tremendous amount of fuel, is out of the gate. He moves first against Coletta. No prisoners. Hill is out there by more than a car and sprints to the win at 5:40. Speed 269 for Coletta, 5:53 at 2:49. So an early trip home for Connie Coletta from Thunder Valley this weekend, Bret.
Well, there's no question that this kind of action will continue, and we'll be back with funny car action from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee, presented by...
We're back to the quarterfinal round of Funny Car Eliminator. John Lundberg with Bret Kepner and Pat Patterson. And Bret, quarterfinal round Funny Car Eliminator coming up. It ought to be a good round of racing.
With a brand new driver returning to the seat of the fabled Blue Max Pontiac Trans Am after a retirement out of this drag racing sport for almost 5 years. Richard Tharp, the Dallas, Texas veteran, now back behind the wheel of the Kodiak Blue Max, heating the tires, John.
And there he goes, Richard Tharp. Since he retired from this sport a bit prematurely, has become a high-performance used car dealer. Tom Hoover, the Showtime Pontiac Trans Am, Champion Auto Parts Amoco Ultimate Oil sponsored race car, has qualified in this program number 5 at 5:76. He now faces a guy who sells exotic cars, Ferrari Testarossas and Lamborghini Countachs, and Bret, it looks like Hoover's car's in trouble.
Well, John, the one-piece carbon fiber Pontiac body is up in the air, and based on the crewman's reaction, I would have to say it looks like an oil line may have become disconnected on the left-hand side of the engine block. The IHRA starting crew, Jim Blakely and Clyde Peak, have apparently held the car up, but it looks now, as the body goes down, that the repairs have been made and it's okay to run.
You have to think what's going on in Hoover's mind right now. He was ready to drag race. They had to put the body up, tighten the oil line. It's down again. And every time Tharp goes down the quarter mile, as he proved at Rockingham, he's just getting better and better.
You know, it's funny. Richard Tharp drove the Blue Max back in the early 1970s against Tom Hoover across the country, and here they are racing again a decade later.
They roll into stage. The Kodiak Blue Max Trans Am at the top of your screen. Nosing in at the bottom to Showtime Trans Am, and we're ready. Out of the chute they go. It's Hoover out first. Tharp smokes the tires, gets sideways. Hoover does the same thing. It's an expensive run, but he wins. Time for Hoover, 6:027 at 216 miles per hour. And now, here's Pat Patterson with a Quaker State Quick Fact.
When it comes to racing, no matter what form of motorsports, aerodynamics proves to be one of the key factors in winning and losing. Now, what Kenny Bernstein has done with his drag car is he has put what they call a vortex generator right here on the car, which helps directionalize wind. For example, as the car travels down the racetrack, air comes over the car. If it were not for these vortex generators, which directionalize the air could slip off to the side. So what happens is, as the air travels over the car, it's directionalized by the vortex generator. It goes to the rear of the car, putting more force on the rear of the car so that there is more traction. This is just one of the new innovative ways that drag racers, just like all other racers, are getting better traction, better speed in an effort to win.
Here's one of the young chargers in funny car drag racing today, Scott Collett of Belleville, Michigan, in the KFS Flying Surface Oldsmobile. Now, in the first round, Collett beat Frank Framberger and ran down the quarter mile at 5:89. He qualified at 5:85. But Bret, look who he's got to race, Kenny Bernstein.
Well, the #1 qualifier, and by far the most sophisticated entry of the Nitro Funny Car Wars, as Pat Patterson just pointed out, is obviously going to be a tough competitor in this battle. Now, Bernstein did elect to make that single run or free ride into this round in the first stanza of eliminations at 5.76 seconds. That was one of the quickest runs now that we have completely different conditions here during actual eliminations as opposed to qualifying. Backing up from the tire heating burnout, crew chief Dale Armstrong, one of the highest paid mechanics in the history of drag racing, checking things out, and obviously the rest of the crew doing their jobs at the starting line, John.
And it looks like the switch for his computer is about to be turned on, monitoring some 54 functions of car operation as the vehicle goes down the quarter mile. They roll into stage. The young charger in this close lane. They're out of the gate. Collett moves first. Smokes the tires. There goes Bernstein. The race isn't over till the winner picker clicks, and it does for Bernstein. Bernstein 5:66 at 2:53. The winner. Collett has passed 6 1/4 seconds. Here's the Stroh's Light Motorcraft Thunderbird. Pat Patterson talked with Mark Oswald in the pits just a little bit earlier.
Your major concerns about this particular race and racetrack. Each one has its own characteristics. What do you worry about, or what do you don't worry about this one?
Well, right now, like I said, our biggest problem is down on the other end. We can't get a hold of the racetrack. You know, we're putting as much wing as we can get on the car, and we're changing the motor and the clutch and things around to try to get a little better grip on the track down there.
Is everybody with a funny car having the same kind of problems?
Yeah, the Pro Stocks and the funny cars in the Top Fuel, all three of them are having a problem down there. Now, yesterday in the morning, the track was pretty bad down there. In the afternoon, it seemed to get better, and today we were expecting it to be a little bit better, and it wasn't, so we have to wait and see.
It's interesting that Mark Oswald should say that because his opponent, a gentleman who very rarely attends IHRA national events, John Martin from Southern California in the Jam Air Chevy Beretta, recorded the quickest run of the first round at 5.74 seconds. Oswald is at a deficit here, John.
So he's got his work cut out for him. It's no prisoners. Each round in drag racing, you either advance or take an early ride home. As the Motorcraft Quality Parts Thunderbird stages it, moves first out on Martin. He's got almost a car length of mid-course. Martin driving around a bit. Oswald wins. The elapsed time for the victor, 5:80 at 2:38. Martin runner-up at 6:21.
On the starting line, the brand new Olds Cutlass Supreme, the cheap auto parts car with Dale Poldy now driving.
Oh, it's a little bit different getting out of a car where they've already had a real excellent driver in it and then coming in, trying a new car, a new combination, and then coming back here where I really enjoy it. I'm going to have a good time here, and I think we're going to do real good. It's going to take a couple races, but we'll be all right.
Dale Poldy backing up to the starting line is driving for the first time in a couple of years on a national event level, at least full-time. He'll be up against one of the stormers in IHRA racing, Doc Holliday's Telstar Daytona. But, John, Doc Holliday may be tough, especially at this racetrack, but Dale Poldy, even though he's been out of the business now for about 2 seasons, is still the single winningest funny car driver in IHRA history.
some 19 major event wins to his record in IHRA competition, and he's against the guy who last year finished number 2 in IHRA World Points, 2 seasoned veterans. By the way, Pulte has won this event, Bret, 3 previous times. So here we go with the Chief Auto Parts Oval staging out of the chute they go, and it's Pulte breaking away first, and it's no contest. Pulte wire to wire, screams across the finish line with a lap time of 5:68 and 2:57. We'll be back with more IHRA Pro Stock drag racing after these messages.
We're back at the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals. The IHRA Championship drag races presented by Budweiser continue with the Pro Stock quarterfinals, and in the near lane, the defending IHRA World Champion, Ricky Smith.
The man standing beside me has won 3 out of 4 IHRA events this year, and he's looking for another win here at Bristol. But you've really got your work cut out for you. Got a slippery racetrack, and it's going to be tough.
They just paved this thing a couple weeks ago, and it's a little slippery right now, Pat, but to just pave it a couple weeks ago, I'd have to say one thing for preparing the track. It is really good in that sense, but the hotter it gets today, I'm afraid that new asphalt may start bleeding, you know, and when I say bleeding is oil is going to start seeping back out of the asphalt, and that may make it real slicky here today.
400ths of a second apart after first round victories. You're looking at the new Chevy Camaro of Joe Lapone as he's ready to go with Smith. It is Smith out first by 500ths of a second. Lapone right with him. Here comes the Ford. It's horsepower time. Ford wins the elapsed time for the victor. 7:53 at 187. Lapone runner-up 7:59 at 182. Bret?
This is the beautiful Pennzoil Pontiac Trans Am driven by Jerry Ekman from California and owned by Bill Orndorff, one of the strongest Pontiacs in this category of drag racing. But that particular Pennzoil machine will be up against one of the strongest Chevrolet products this sport has to offer. Second-generation driver Tim Neighbors from the state of Georgia. His father was a longtime IHRA Pro Stock campaigner in the Neighbors Automotive Chevy Camaro, a home-built car with a home-built Pontiac engine in the Chevrolet, John.
They get tighter and tighter. These two are 600ths of a second apart after first-round victories. They're ready to stage as they move in. Get a look at our starter, Jim Blakely, as he very, very intensely concentrates to make sure that everybody is staged and ready to move properly from the start. They're up and ready to move. They're out of the gate. It's Ekman out by 800ths of a second, but here comes Neighbors running beautifully. Neighbors pulls on Ekman, wins. Time 7:55 for Jim Neighbors. Beautiful pass at 184. Now we're looking down the nose of the Motorcraft Quality Parts Ford Thunderbird of Bob Glidden.
Bob Glidden is the number 2 qualifier here at Bristol, and the two main things that seem to be on everybody's mind is the condition of the track and the fact that the air here at Bristol is subject to change, you know, very rapidly. How do you adjust to both of those things, Bob?
Well, you know, everything we do in this business is a guess. We're going to have to wait and see what happens, what everything looks like around noon, and we'll maybe compensate with a change. Really, the most critical round for us is the second round. That seems to be when the track is the hottest and when we may have the most trouble. At that point, we'll just have to throw the coin and make a guess.
There's a 10th of a second differential between Morris Johnson Jr. in the near lane and Bob Glidden. Bret, what's Johnson going to try to do here?
Leave on him. Simple as that, John. He's got to get off the starting line ahead of Glidden. Glidden moves into stage last. RPM's up. They leave the starting line, and it looks like Morris Johnson did manage to get out in front of the Motorcraft Thunderbird. Still door-to-door, wheel-to-wheel, all the way down the quarter mile. I don't believe it. Morris Johnson pulls off the ultimate upset in Pro Stock. 7:58 while losing, but quicker. 7:54. Johnson with 400ths of a second on his Glidden at the starting line.
In the Mike Fujita Chevrolet Camaro, Harry Scribner, the ride of his life in 1988 Pro Stock drag racing. He's the slower of these two cars as he faces the AC Delco Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson, and they stage ready to move at the starting line. Green, out of the chute they go, but red for Scribner as he's out of the game. Warren Johnson cycling hard down the quarter mile. Wants lane choice if he can get at the Oldsmobile run. 7:50 at 185, 7:58, 183 for the runner-up, and a red light for Scribner.
As Warren Johnson makes the turn off Ricky Smith's crew, back in the pit area is already changing tires for round 3 of Pro Stock. But we'll be back with more action, funny car action, from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser.
We're back for the semi-final round of Funny Car Eliminator at the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser. John Lundberg, Bret Kepner, and Pat Patterson. And Bret, semifinal round funny car eliminator. We're looking right down the nose of the Budweiser King.
And that is Dale Armstrong, the crew chief we talked so much about, the man who Kenny Bernstein invariably credits every bit of his ability to win races repeatedly, too. On the tire-eating bird out, obviously Bernstein has got to be ranked as a favorite here, John, even though he's up against the winningest funny car driver IHRA's ever had.
Correct, Brett. But Dale Pulley's assignment this weekend, even though he's a three-time world funny car champion in IHRA drag racing, is to prove this combination. Pat earlier caught up with Dale Pulley in the pit.
Dale, you're the winningest funny car driver in IHRA history, and I guess with that goes a lot of pressure.
Yes, there is a lot of pressure. In fact, no matter where you're at in the racing circuit, or whether you're on top or in the middle or whatever, there's a lot of pressure because you always want to go out and win and do good, especially for your sponsor.
Bernstein's machine waits patiently on the starting line, and although Bernstein was capable of low qualifying position, he is not absolutely the quickest car in eliminations right now. Pulley was right with him, John.
They stage and ready to race. Pulley with point to make. Is he going to make it right now? They're in the mid-range. Bernstein smokes the tires, backs off. Pulley proves it and wins. Time, 5:77.231. Bernstein coasts across the end at 7:15 and 1:20. And Dale Pulley has proved his point. The combination works. He's cycling into the next round.
Well, that was more of a driving job, John, than anything else, obviously. Both cars smoking the tires. And speaking of smoking the tires, Mark Oswald knows now that he's got to put some serious rubber down on this racetrack if he wants to stay away from doing the same.
Well, obviously, his attempt in this round is going to be to gain lane choice. Let's see if he can bring it off against the Showtime Champion Auto Parts Amoco Ultimate Oil Pontiac Trans Am of Tom Hoover. Now, Hoover has had his work cut out for him this weekend. He honestly believes that he's on an uphill grade. The killers are here. He's got to blow their doors off as it's possible. But standing between him right now is that car. The Motorcraft Quality Parts Stroh's Light Thunderbird of Mark Oswald, the Candies and Used machine. A lot of tension coming to the starting line. It's virtually a race for lane choice at this point, with Hoover looking up at Oswald and wanting to beat him to the finish line, Brett.
That's true, and Hoover's had his work cut out for him for the last couple of months, really. The brand new Showtime Trans Am has been pretty evil handling. It's given him a lot of problems, but this is the first of them where it seems to be sorted out. Oswald knows that Hoover's capable of running in the 570s and can give him a run for his money. They move into stage, they're ready, the tree goes to green. Oswald leaves first by a bunch, almost a 500th of a second advantage, and never is threatened. 5.64 seconds for Oswald is the quickest elapsed time in funny car eliminations, John.
And it certainly puts him in the final round, a tenth of a second quicker than Pulley, so he gets lane choice. Pro Stock semifinals on the starting line right now, and it doesn't get any better than this. Current world champion Ricky Smith against the guy we may call young Mr. Gate Job, Morris Johnson Jr.
Now, Morris Johnson Jr. was runner-up at the IHRA Winter Nationals back in 1985, and indeed, this is the best he's done in an IHRA race since then. It's interesting to note that that black and silver Pontiac Trans Am was purchased from the man who owns this racetrack, Jim Ruth.
Well, let's see if the purchase works out as he's going to run against Ricky Smith. I think Morris Johnson Jr.'s got a target with Ford written on it. Let's see if it works in this round.
RPM's up, they leave the line, and the whole shot goes to Morris Johnson again. Can he get Ricky Smith this time? That's the question. No, Smith drives around him.
Ricky Smith, 752 at 186. And now, Tim Neighbors faces Warren Johnson.
I tell you, this particular battle presents several different varieties of automobiles here. The all-Oldsmobile Sierra of Warren Johnson, the Pontiac-powered Chevrolet of the youngster from Snellville, Georgia.
They stage, ready to move down the quarter mile. Warren Johnson lists his occupation as toolmaker. Tim Neighbors, he just came here to drag race and has been doing a beautiful job of it all weekend long. They're out of the gate. As they sprint away, the start goes to Neighbors. Johnson ahead of him now. As they clear the quarter mile, it's Oldsmobile. Warren Johnson nips him at 752, 184 Neighbors, a 756 at 184.80.
Tremendous battle, and Warren Johnson moves into his second straight IHRA National Event final, but we'll be back with Top Fuel Dragsters from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser in a moment.
We're back for the semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator at the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser. John Lundberg with Bret Kepner and Pat Patterson. And Bret, here comes the Super Shops Top Fuel Dragster and Mr. 499, Eddie Hill.
Still the only man with a fourth second quarter mile of lap time to his credit. Look at the power on that tire heating burnout as his wife, Ursi, steps out of the way. The Winston champion, Dick LaHaye's Miller High Life top fueler does the same.
An interesting comment here at mid-season, Brett, is that Dick LaHaye has gone back to basics. He's disconnected everything that the computer has to do with driving the vehicle. All it does now is record what he does. This is his early season car, basic combination. And Eddie Hill, he just wants to keep tuning and improving what he's already got. He and Ursi and Fuzzy Carter have worked on a dynamite combination. No doubt about it, the Winston Series champion has his work cut out for him against this big yellow top fuel dragster.
That's interesting you should say that about LaHaye taking all the computer-aided equipment off the car to find a baseline. Eddie Hill has said time and time again he doesn't understand how anybody can run one of these cars without a computer.
Well, I think the comment was really neat. The guy who developed this whole computer system, Ray Alley, after witnessing LaHaye's analysis of his first time with a computer on the car, said, "Hey, LaHaye, you don't need one of these. Just keep it as a recorder and an indicator. You're good enough by yourself."
There's no question that LaHaye is probably the best seat-of-the-pants driver in the business, but obviously right now it's going to be strictly a horsepower battle between two of the quickest cars here. Moving into free stage, indicating that they'll be 6 inches or so away from the starting line itself. You can see Hill is already in the pre-stage beam, the first yellow light on the tree, and there you can see it as they sit waiting for each other to move in.
Now this is going to be maybe a burn down. Nobody wants to stage here. Look at this. The engines are consuming fuel at the rate of 14 gallons a pass, and nobody wants to stage. The engines are warming up. The tension builds. Who's going to stage first? LaHaye has always wanted to stage last. Kim LaHaye is extremely nervous. What's her dad going to do? And Hill stays out. Now LaHaye finally moves. Here comes the Pennzoil car into stage. It's anybody's race. They're out of the gate. Hill moves first. LaHaye's on him like a minute. They're coming at it hard. LaHaye wins. Time 5:38 for Dick LaHaye. 267. Eddie Hill runner-up at 5:42. 268. Brett, what a drag race.
I'll tell you, 13 thousandths of a second difference at the finish line. And you can see 300 feet off the starting line, Eddie Hill hazing the tires. A little bit of smoke, a little bit of lost traction going on the rear tires. And indeed, that may have accounted for that 13 thousandths of a second that Eddie needed to stay in front of the Miller machine. Look right here at the finish line. It doesn't get much closer than that, John. 13 thousandths of a second.
A burn down at the starting line and 13 thousandths of a second apart at the finish line. What a drag race. And the hits just keep on coming, Brett. Here comes Dennis Purcell, and he's going to have at it with a motto. The beautiful Cable Value Network top fuel dragster gets better with every pass down the quarter mile.
No question that Dennis Purcell on the left-hand lane has found something that nobody else has, but Amato's no fool.
Funny car guys seem to be having a little bit of problem getting hooked up out there. What exactly is the situation for the top fuel cars?
Well, they can't put enough wing in their cars. So the spoilers in the cars won't make enough downforce. For a dragster, you can put a big wing on the back, and it'll allow the car to push down on the track when you get out in the middle. And it's a little slippery. It's a new surface. It's going to take a little bit of running on it to get it tethered in.
Purcell looking for his first national event final round ever, but Amato puts a little bit of a hole shot on him off the line.
Amato wins at 5:36.273 and a 200th of a second hole shot and an 1100th seconds finish at the end of the quarter mile with Joe Amato in the final round. And we'll be back with final round drag racing from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser after these. We're back at the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser. John Lundberg here with Bret Kepner and Pat Patterson. Coming up, Alcohol Funny Car Finals as we look at Tommy Johnson Jr.'s beautiful Super Winch Pontiac Trans Am, Bret.
Well, Tommy Johnson Jr. is the defending champion here at the Spring Nationals, and if we go back to the semifinal round, you'll see how he got here to this championship battle. He defeated Greg Moss, the driver in the near lane from Benton, Missouri, who has finished #2 in the world in IHRA alcohol funny car racing for the last 2 consecutive seasons. In this battle in the semifinals, Johnson just barely left the starting line ahead of Moss, and look how close it was. Less than a half a car at the finish line, 642 to 650. Now, with Johnson going into the final round, the other semifinal determined his opponent. It was Dal Denton in the Lighting and Fans Sudden Pleasure Pontiac Trans Am from Texas against one of the strongest launching funny cars in the business, Dave Sebring and Tom Akers' Wizard Chevy Beretta.
They face each other at the starting line. We've got Green. Out of the chute they go, and Sebring does it again. Breaks away by 200ths of a second in the lead. Can Denton keep him? He does. Denton wins. Beautiful pass, 6:39 at 2:18. And Denton has lane choice in this run, Brett.
That's right. He did get lane choice. With the RPMs up, the Super Winch Trans Am with the 19-year-old driver leads against the more seasoned professional. And this is a side-by-side drag race. Tommy Johnson trying to reel him in and cannot do it. Now Denton takes his third International Hot Rod Association National Event Victory of the Year. And this man has proven to be unbeatable in 1988 drag racing.
Well, we've been pretty consistent. I think that's what did it for us.
The track seemed to come back now that the sun went down for us. It was going to be good for everybody.
I think it's going to be real good. It ought to be a real good final.
Congratulations. And you got a sponsor on your car that's got to be extra happy about this.
I tell you what, he's going to be ecstatic when I call him. He was telling us that this had to be the race.
And that's the lighting and fans people out of Nashville, right?
Nashville, Tennessee, yeah.
Great.
Best people in the world.
Good run.
Thank you.
So Dow Denton's third win of the 1988 IHRA Championship Tour puts him solidly #1 in the race for the World Championship in Top Alcohol Funny Car, but Tommy Johnson's runner-up puts him 4th. Though we're only halfway through the 1988 season.
Here's another race, the Top Alcohol Dragster Final. You're looking at Mike Truxell of Denver, Colorado. That's Denny Lucas of Grand Junction. These guys live in the same state, 250 miles apart with a mountain range between them, and they love to drag race. Truxell, the #1 qualifier in the field. Lucas, who we're looking at now, #2 in the program. And here they are, after wading through an incredible field of competition to face each other in the final.
Well, John, it's really no major surprise that these two are facing each other in the final. Even though it was, as you pointed out, an incredibly tough program, these two guys have been literally destroying the field all weekend long with the quickest and fastest runs in these class. Now, keep in mind that as opposed to the top fuel dragsters we watch, these machines burn alcohol for fuel, and the engines are about 100 cubic inches in displacement smaller than those in top fuel dragsters. Plus, these machines have an extra gear, a 3-speed transmission.
One of the extra elements in their favor, I believe, Brett, is the fact that these guys living in Colorado and having to tune these machines for running an average of a mile above sea level has allowed them to better deal without assistance from nitromethane with the absence of oxygen in the air here today caused by the extreme dampness and the extremely high temperatures.
That's true, and it's also a high-altitude racetrack, as we pointed out. We're in the middle of the mountains in Tennessee here, so again, like you say, the air is much comparable to those conditions they might experience at home. So Denny Lucas and Mike Truxell had a little bit of a tuning aid just coming to this race.
So about 1,500 miles from where they normally race, these two guys now are matched up in the final round of Top Alcohol Dragster Eliminator. Truxell, the #1 qualifier. On the left side of your screen, the blue car nosing in on the right, Denny Lucas, the current Winston champion. We're now ready to drag race. Out of the chute they go. Truxell out by 17 thousandths of a second. It's a real drag race. They're going for it. Truxell wins. Time 6:37 at 2:11. Lucas runner-up, just 0.05 of a second away at 6:42 and 2:10.
A little bit of smoke out of Denny Lucas's engine there, John, and that may have caused a problem on the top end. But here's Mike Truxell.
Well, it's a good track, and I'll tell you, we've had a lot of help from a lot of people, and basically we've had a lot of help from the people at Hayes Clutches help us get down this track.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And the 1-2 finish for Mike Truxell and Denny Lucas put him right in the Top Alcohol Dragster points program behind Bill Barney, who still leads by 2,400 points. Now we go to Sportsman Eliminator Final drag racing.
In the 1290 class here in the near lane is the 1969 Chevy Nomad of Gene Jordan, who was runner-up at the recent Pro-Am Nationals in Rockingham, North Carolina. In the far lane is Clearwater, Florida racer Bill Whitstein, who, by the way, wasn't even supposed to be at this race. He was making a business trip in Tennessee and decided to trailer along his Barracuda race car. In the final against Jordan, the Barracuda wins by a quarter of a car, and Whitstein's business trip turns into a big, big vacation.
In the 1190 class, you're looking at an AMC Hornet with about 50,000 miles of drag racing on it, a quarter mile at a time. He's going to be racing Randy Lewis of Mountain, Tennessee in the Chevrolet Corvette. In the AMC, John Boyer of Millville, New Jersey.
Boyer, for many, many years with that Rambler, was one of the toughest racers on the East Coast in the Sportsman division. And on the starting line, you can see both machines leaving about dead even. Now, the objective in this class is to beat your opponent without going quicker than 11.90 seconds. Boyer just nips the Corvette by a matter of inches to take yet another major title for this longtime Sportsman campaigner.
All right, here's another all-run category, the 1090 class. It's David Simmons, 3-time world champion from Norcross, Georgia, in the near lane against Mike Blevins of Defiance, Ohio in the Chevy 2. as they sprint to the quarter mile at speed. The first car through is
David Simmons. 1082 will take the win to a quicker but losing 1080 for Blevins. In the 990 category, this is the aggravation Chevy Camaro of Denny Cooper from Falls Church, Virginia, a long, long time IHRA supporter. He's up against a relative newcomer from Homestead, Florida, way down at the southern tip of that state. This is Harry Dixon with his 1923 Ford T Roadster with a big block Chevrolet engine. As they leave the starting line, Dixon leaves just a fraction of a second too quick and draws a red light start. The 27T driver knows it. He shuts it down and sends the aggravation Camaro through for the automatic Spring Nationals victory. 1/100th of a second over the index at 991.
In the 890 category, Dave Edwards, St. Petersburg, Florida, against John DeCourt at Salem, Ohio. And we're looking right down the tack of DeCourt's Roadster as he stages to race.
I'll tell you, you are talking about two of the best drag racers in the business. Dave Edwards races this dragster for a living. He does nothing else but races sportsman drag racing events. He's up against the fuel-injected roadster that John told you about of John DeCourt from Ohio. And on the top end, Edwards gets there first and takes the win by 2/100ths of a second.
Jim Crawford from Leisure City, Florida, finds himself against Steve Cohen, another guy who does nothing but race in sportsman-type drag racing. Cohen, kind of known as Mr. Slot Racer, Bret, because of his incredibly consistent quarter-mile time.
I'll tell you, the Gene White Racing rear-engine dragster that you're looking at is probably the most consistent vehicle, but Cohen is literally a human robot. His reaction times are within 2 or 3 thousandths of a second of the green light, run after run after run. Now, Cohen and Crawford are good buddies. In fact, Cohen calls Crawford Crawfish, even lettered that on his race car here this weekend. So this is a friendly grudge match, but it's still for one of the biggest titles in IHRA drag racing. Rear-engine Chevrolet-powered dragsters that run over 170 miles per hour. They leave the starting line side by side, and it is a drag race. Crawfish battles Cohen and loses. Steve Cohen wins another national event, his 4th win in IHRA racing this year.
794 to 161.40. We go to the factory modified class. This virtually pairs in this final round two almost identical vehicles from an appearance standpoint. Small block Chevrolet Oldsmobile Forenzas ready to sprint the quarter mile.
Both machines using 5-speed manual transmissions. Listen, 12,000 RPM on the launch as they go through the 5-speed side by side in IHRA's brand new heads-up, no breakout factory modified. The win goes to the one and only Rich Horde from the state of Florida, his first national event win ever at 882.
Here's the top sportsman final. Bret, I got to call these guys fuel altered with doors. The most incredibly unlimited class in drag racing. It's run what you brung and hope you brung enough. No limits, nitrous, and go for it.
And here at the end of this 32-car field in the near lane is Joe Groves at his first race ever. First time he's ever run the Wildfire Trans Am against John Housley's home state Chevy Camaro. Lots of smoke out from underneath Groves' Youngstown, Ohio-based Trans Am, but he's going to stay in it. Now popping and banging from the Camaro. Groves drives around for the win in Top Sportsman at his first major event ever, John.
8 seconds flat and 167 miles per hour. We're going to be back with Pro Stock Drag Racing from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser following these. We're back at Bristol International Dragway, side of the 24th annual WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser. With me is Bret Kepner, and Bret, an exciting series of finals coming up.
I think the most hotly contested battle, John, is going to be the Top Fuel Dragster finale. While Dick LaHaye showed up here at the Spring Nationals to test out a couple of new combinations, Joe Amato has ruled this event since the start of qualifying, and it's going to be unbelievably tough to beat.
And it's no prisoners in the other two pro finals as well, Bret. The difference between a good drag race and a great drag race is close racing competition. Here's the Pro Stock Eliminator final with Warren Johnson against Ricky Smith again, and they're just 1/1000th of a second apart.
Anytime we get in the finals, we're happy. I don't care who it's against.
What do you got to do to win?
Obviously go quicker and faster and probably leave on them.
We're glad to get in the finals. You know, the semifinals is always good, but the finals are better, so looked like we made a good run, and looked like Warren made a little bit better run. He's got lane choice, I guess, by 1,000 here, so it's going to be a good run. You know, I mean, as long as we're within a couple hundreds, hey, somebody's got to lead first. You know, whether it's Neil Warren, it'll be a good run, and, you know, may the best man win.
This one so tight it's sweet. A thousandth of a second apart as Warren Johnson and Ricky Smith in a rematch of the Pro-Am Nationals come back to face each other in the final round of Pro Stock Eliminator.
And while Ricky Smith likes to win at Rockingham, North Carolina, his home track, he's the defending champion here at Bristol and considers this the biggest IHRA race of the year. Starting line reaction is going to be imperative. They leave the line. Warren Johnson leaves the line 4/1,000ths of a second after the green light comes on.
At the quarter mile, it's Oldsmobile. Johnson beats Ricky Smith at 7:50 and 184. Smith runner-up, 7:56 at 186.41. Warren Johnson finally beats the Ford, and the fans just love it. Here's Pat with Warren.
The AC Delco car came through, and we're just happy for them. Because guys at the shop really deserve all the credit for this. And, we've been struggling a little bit lately. We've always had a lot of power, and we've just sat back and analyzed what we were doing and found out what we were doing wrong, and we've just been working on the chassis and the rest of it just to get it down the racetrack, and it's paying off.
You were fired up for this race, though, weren't you?
I'm fired up for every race.
Well, with Ricky Smith's incredible 1988 season already, he still retains the World Championship Pro Stock points lead. But Warren Johnson is right on his tail with Bob Glidden, Tim Neighbors, and Terry Adams behind him.
Here comes the Funny Car Eliminator final, and in this one, Brett, another close race. The two combatants, Dale Pulte and Mark Oswald, are less than an eighth of a second apart coming into the final round.
It's interesting to note that these two drivers have dominated Funny Car Eliminator at this track more than any other, with the exception of Paul Smith's victory here at the Fall Nationals last September. Any Funny Car race in the last 2 or 3 years has been picked up by Mark Oswald or Dale Pulte here at Thunder Valley.
And what we're looking at is two of the most successful world champions in IHRA history. Oswald in the right lane, a 3-time champion, and the only 2 times he hasn't won it in the last 5 years, Pulte won it.
It's amazing what Pulte has done, even since he just jumped back into the seat of the brand-new Olds Cutlass Supreme from Chief Auto Parts and Billy Meyer Racing. However, Mark Oswald, as we know, is probably the most fierce competitor in IHRA racing, and he's done so many different things in IHRA drag racing, whether it's a Top Fuel Dragster World Championship or those 3 Funny Car World titles.
So they stage to race now. Dale Pulte proving a new combination. No matter how this race finishes up, Pulte's the driver that Billy Meyer wanted in this car, and the evidence is it's working here in open drag racing competition. They're ready to sprint from the starting line as they're staged. Out of the chute they go. It's Oswald out first. Pulte smokes the tires. Oswald, expensive pass, but wins. Oswald 565 at 259. Pulte 575 at 224.
I'll tell you, an amazingly close race considering the fact that Pulte smoked the tires and Oswald burned pistons. Unreal. I think it's obvious Mark Oswald is serious about another world championship.
Well, I'm just real happy for the crew. I mean, we thrashed a new motor in there and come out with altogether different parts and run that good. Says a lot for the Thunderbird, you know. Also, real happy for Motorcraft and Stroh's. You know, they've stuck behind us, and we're doing real good this year. We're just happy for them.
Mark Oswald's Funny Car Championship moves him to within 170 points of Ed McCulloch, the bracket leader. Third, Trip Shoemake. Fourth, Scott Coletta. Fifth, John Force. The action at the IHRA Summer Nationals at Echo, New Jersey is going to be incredible. Top Fuel Dragster Finals coming up from the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser. We're back at the WCYB TV5 Spring Nationals presented by Budweiser at Thunder Valley, Bristol International Dragway. You look down the nose of the Amato Racing TRW Hearst Keystone Top Fuel Dragster as Joe Amato goes into the final round. Just 14 thousandths of a second quicker in the program against this guy. Dick LaHaye, Lansing, Michigan, Winston Series champion for 1987 in the Miller High Life Top Fuel Dragster. LaHaye, number 3 qualifier, took his privilege of a bye run in the 12-car field and then beat Gene Snow and Eddie Hill's Pennzoil Top Fuel Super Shops Dragster.
Joe Amato also sat out the first round by virtue of his number 1 qualifying spot and then beat Dan Pastorini and then, of course, Dennis Forcell.
The final, you know, us and LaHaye again. It seems like every time we're here in the final against LaHaye, we always have good races. We're always decided by a couple hundreds.
What do you got to do to win in the final?
Just do what we've been doing, win.
And the track should help you some with temperatures cooling off.
Yeah, I think it will. Good. We're just going to go out there and step on it and hope for the best.
It's an interesting point as they come into the final round here, Brett, that both of these drivers disdain any computer assistance in running their race cars. They use computers to record their reactions and several functions of the vehicle, but they both drive these vehicles 100% by pure driver talent.
Well, I think Dick LaHaye proved his point in the semifinals when he defeated Eddie Hill, who uses computers to monitor every single engine function. And this weekend, of course, LaHaye, I don't think, is really even concerned on anything what the computer has to say. He wants to drive this car like the old days, like he was so capable of doing for so many years. As the reigning Winston champion, he and Amato raced many, many times last year. But this particular IHRA championship battle may be one of the most intense this year.
Whenever these guys meet, it's called war at the starting line. LaHaye pulls his face mask down as his son Jeff wipes the balled-up rubber off the back of his tires as the vehicle rolls into stage against Joe Amato. When you race this guy, you'd better be ready.
Amato's crew chief Tim Richards has already given him the sign to move it to the starting line and get ready for a battle. Now it is strictly man versus man. LaHaye and Amato on the line. LaHaye the last one into stage. They're ready. The tree goes to green, and they leave side by side. Now Amato starts to use a little bit more power, and Joe Amato defeats Dick LaHaye for the IHRA Spring National Top Fuel title. Only 0.05 of a second between them. Both machines over 270 miles per hour. You couldn't ask for a wilder finale to this event.
Well, today, when it's your day, but we worked hard today. We had a problem with our wing in the first round, and Timmy made some adjustments to the car, and it came through. That one's for the 90,000 TRW folks around the country.
Congratulations. Good run.
Thank you. You're welcome. It was exciting, though.
And Joe Amato moves in on Gene Snow's 900-point lead for the Top Fuel Championship. Third, John Kerry. Fourth, Dennis Forcell. Fifth, Eddie Hill. And Bret, what an incredible drag race we've seen here at Thunder Valley this weekend.
There's no question that any championship drag racing event at this awesome racing facility is always one of the best. But we've had a great time, and we've got more IHRA racing to come.
This IHRA Championship drag race is brought to you